Hey, what's going on? What's happening, y'all? This your girl Tiffany. I'm here live in effect. So today I'm going to get into a topic about the Haitian immigration and the Samana American. And the reason why, because May is a Haitian Heritage Month. All right. So for this month, I wanted to what for today, I wanted to talk about the Haitian immigration. So for those of you that may not be familiar with the Haitian immigration, it took place around the 1800s, where African Americans had the opportunity to immigrate to Haiti. At that time, it was called Hit Española. So it was before there was a separation between the Dominican and the Haiti island. They were all one island. So the African Americans had the opportunity to go to Haiti, and they went by numbers. They actually had a chance to live in the community and whatnot. So this was under the time where the president of Haiti was Jean-Pierre Boyer. So Jean-Pierre Boyer was the president at the time. And he was like, okay, we'll open up doors of opportunity for African Americans. They can come through, whatnot, because Haiti was the first Black country to gain its independence from the French. Okay. They won their revolution and they gained their independence. All right. And so many African Americans did not want to go to Liberia. This is when the American Colonization Society, went to Africa, and they built towns and, had land masses and created the country Liberia and then parts of Sierra Leone. Right. Anyways, so many African Americans did not want to go to Africa. There were those who did, but there was some that said, nah, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay in this country. And then we don't want to go there. So then there were those that we want a land of our own. In other words, they want an autonomous society. So instead, they was given the opportunity to go to Haiti. And that's where they went, to Haiti. Now, it was a few numbers around the 1810. Then around 1824 to 26, the numbers started to increase. And then once Abraham Lincoln became the president, which was around the 1850s, then there was more African Americans going to Haiti. All right. And then also with the Samana Americans are of ancestry of those who are African Americans, those who immigrated into their area. Okay. So they are a small group in Dominican Republic, but they make up the 80% of the population of African American. So when I'm saying this to say that chances are, the Haitians may have ancestors that came from America. All right. The Dominican Republican, chances are they have ancestors that came from America, not just ancestors that came from Africa. I mean, we all descended from African people, but they also had ancestors from America that immigrated to those islands. All right. So Samana Province is northeast of Dominican Republic. Okay. So, I mean, I gathered as much information as I possibly could because I was up last night trying to compile this together, trying to figure out, okay, what sources I can use, what books, etc. So I tried to get as much as I could. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read about it. I'm going to present some of the sources that I have, and then we're going to go from there. All right, so let me show y'all something from Wiki One. So I always go to Wiki One or Wikipedia website because, a lot of people go here because they find it more convenient. So yeah, this is where you'll find information, but I also have sources to help back up this information to validate it. So let me go ahead and read it. All right, so let's look at the Haitian immigration. So Haitian immigration was a movement to describe the immigration of free blacks from the United States to settle in Haiti in the early 19th century. In an attempt to break out from the United States racist field society, antebellum free blacks immigrated to Haiti. Although a few immigrants left for Haiti during the 1810s, it was not until 1824 that, with the support of the Haitian President Jean-Pierre Boyer, that the immigration began in its earnest. The Haitian Immigration Project ran against the wishes of the American Colonization Society, which attempted to remove free black as far as Africa and dreaded the idea of strengthening the black state of Haiti. Several thousand blacks departed towards Haiti the summer of 1824, and the flow continued until 1826, when the Haitian government stopped paying and defraying the transportation costs. The U.S. black continued to move to Haiti after this, but the numbers were never as high as those that left between the years of 1824 and 1826. Another Haitian immigration scheme began in 1859 and lasted for about 3 years. Even though this project had the support of Abraham Lincoln and other political figures, the frustration of the 1820s and increasing black identification with the U.S. substantially hindered the enthusiasm this time. All right. So, as you can see, again, one of the reasons why many African Americans immigrated to Haiti is because they was dealing with so much racial tensions here in America. So someone wanted to go to Haiti, and then there was those of them that went to Africa, and then there was those who wanted to stay in America and fight for liberation. All right, so let me show you guys a source. Oh, my bad. Hold on. That's the wrong one. I'm going to get to that one, though. All right, this book here is called Caribbean Crossing. The book is called Caribbean Crossing, African Americans and the Haitian Immigration Movement by Sarah Fanny. All right, so this goes into the history of the whole reason why the immigration movement took place in African Americans. And so let's see what year this book was written. It was written in 2015. Okay, that's when this book was written. All right, so as you can see, these are the table of content. All right, so let's look at the introduction. So right here, the introduction say, when 120 free black New Yorkers gathered in the African Zion Church in the early September 1824 to attend religious service, they received a blessing for a sea voyage that promised to transform their lives, their community, and perceptions of their race. They were to be the first of as many as 13,000 African American immigrants who set sail for Haiti in the mid-1820s, taking up an offer of Haitian lands and liberty from President Jean-Pierre Boyer, Haiti's president from 1818 to 1843. Delivering the blessing and farewell address that evening, Reverend Peter Williams, the president of the Haitian Immigration Society of Colored People and minister of the African Episcopal Church of the St. Philip, summed up the motivation for and the significance of the coming voyages. He began by reminding his New York audience that they, the first from this port, shouldered a great responsibility in seeing that Haitian immigration was a success. He addressed the congregation as the pioneers of a vast multitude, waiting to leave the house of bondage that was America, emphasizing that failure would discourage the great mass whom you leave behind. and prolong their degradation and sufferings. Williams reminded the departing Americans that much more than their own destiny depended on their conduct in Haiti. All right, so the news was revealed to 123 black people in a church in New York, an African Zion church, that they were going to be a part of the 13,000 African Americans who were going to immigrate over to the country Haiti. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. All right, so let me go ahead and scroll down. All right, so it says down here, African Americans. African Americans migrate to Haiti because they view the nation in many ways as the black land of the free. Haiti, as a black ruled constitutional republic, offered economic opportunity, equality, and citizenship to all its black residents. By migrating, African Americans demonstrate a belief in a black nation for all the descendants of Africa, and understood this move as an important solution to the rampant racism that they increasingly encounter in the United States. All right. And then chapter 1 goes in migration to Haiti in the context of other contemporary migration. So when the Haitian president Jean-Pierre Boyer spent as much as $300,000 to finance African American migration to Haiti and sent a recruiting agent to the United States in 1824, his deep commitment to the migration project was evident. His commitment became ever more evident to observer when he met the arriving American settlers on the Port-au-Prince docks, extended his personal welcome to them, providing transport, food, supplies, and housing for up to 6,000 migrants willing to cultivate land in Haiti. Boyer's offer was unique for the time in allocating these resources to migrants. Although organization and sponsors called the migrants from the U.S. to Haiti immigrants, in some senses, they were colonists. In other senses, exile. Colonists wished to remain culturally self-contained, retaining language and customs from their home country. Exile are generally driven from their home or barred from returning. The African American migrants differ from most European colonists in that they were attached to their destination by its independence from their home nation, but they were not forced to leave. Leaving was an act of conscience to a greater extent than any European. Since the Puritan pilgrims, they sought refuge from exclusion in the home nation in the actively sympathetic philosophy of the new nation. Even as they retained American customs, the free blacks embraced Haiti's constitution, tactically rejecting that of the United States. The African American immigrants were political pilgrims, and this is what distinguishes their experience from that of contemporary migrants and colonial adventurers. Boyer was so eager to augment Haiti's educated population and create ties with the U.S. that he allowed these political pilgrims to retain an American identity, even as he fostered the emerging philosophy of a Black identity. Boyer promised the migrants that they would be settled together and would be able to keep their religion, language, and settlement groups. The original plan was for the government to disperse the migrants to different locals throughout the island in groups of 30 or more. They were also to disperse to plantations and regions that needed them. These were also places that were not densely populated, so there would not be competition or too much interaction between Haitian and Americans. Upon the immigrants' arrival, the plan faced obstacles including the reluctance of the immigrants to follow the plan because they fear isolation, the severe drought and its effect on the prospects of farming and cultivating, and the American ships' propensity to dock at the Port au Prince over other ports on the island, with the result that the vast majority of African Americans landed at the capital. So Port-au-Prince is the capital of Haiti. So that's where many African Americans was landed at first. Then, of course, they went to other areas. So in total, it was about 6,000 of them that was coming through, and then it was some more thousands. So it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, if you think about it, it's not really a whole lot compared to the Haitian population. However, that was enough. That was a lot of African Americans that was leaving, though. You know what I'm saying? But again, there was still more that stayed in the U.S. Okay, so let's go down further. All right, so let's look at Haiti's founding fathers. So when Jean-Jacques Dessalines proclaimed Haiti's independence in 1804, he began the process of transforming the former colony into a nation. As a two-product slave state governed by a tiny elite, Saint Dominique bequeathed few institutions or foundations to the new nation. Moving this society towards nationhood posed as enormous challenge to the first generation leaders of Haiti. Dessalines, Alexandre Piat, Henry Christophe, and Jean-Pierre Boyer, because the issues of land, labor, and diplomatic recognition remain unsolved. All right. And it says French declaration to invade and reimpose slavery left Haitians uncertain of their security. They also fueled the nation militarism as each Haitian leader established a standing army of tens of thousands of soldiers to allay security fears confronting an international situation without recognition. No other world power would acknowledge Haiti's existence for fear of offending the French. This standing army curbed French and other nations' aggressiveness. The young nation leaders assumed that once they established and made Haiti a stable, well-regarded, and commercially invaluable state, then diplomats and important allies will rally around to improve its international status and woo such potential allies. Haitian leaders set to work building the ravaged society into an economically viable nation. All right, so the plantation system was the economic model that Haitian leaders reverted to in order to make their nation rich, powerful, and respected. But ordinary Haitians, most of whom were former slaves, rejected this program of growing a cash crop with plantation-type labor. With the leaders of Haiti seeing their hopes for a respected, recognized, and secure Haiti jeopardized by this refusal, but unable to reimpose the plantation labor system wholesale, they turned to the United States and the Black community there. Each of Haiti's early leaders looked to these potential Black settlers to bring labor, skills, and capital to aid in the building of the Haitian nation, and each looked to the international community for the security of diplomatic allies. So that was another reason why the Haitian immigration took place, because they needed more skilled workers. They needed more capital. So they say, okay, we can take on these African Americans people because that will help build our nation and strengthen our nation. And they were looking for more security because remember, Haiti broke away from the French, right? So when you break away, now you got to be able to build your economy. You got to build your system. And so they were trying to figure out ways how they can build their system. And so One of the ways was they went on with the immigration process because it was going to help build their system. If they got more skilled labor workers, people who were very educated, that will build their society and give them more capital gains economic. Now, as of today, we all know that Haiti has been really suffering a lot, especially when the earthquake had hit around, I think it was 2013, I believe. When the earthquake had took place, let's talk about how the Red Cross was supposed to send $1 billion to Haiti, right? For the earthquake. And they pocket half of that money. Let's put it like that. They pocket half of that money. So Haiti did not receive all the money they needed from Red Cross. Okay. So yeah, it's a lot of things going on. So they dealing with it's a lot of stricken poverty over there in Haiti as of right now. And not to mention, although they won their independence from France, they still have to owe France some money. You know, and that's the game. But see, that's the thing. When you win a war, you could win it, but you will still have to pay up, because wherever you paying up for all the losses that your opponent has, you know, that your enemy has. So you got to pay that up. So they paying for all the losses that the French people had. So French people lost all their revenue, you know, due to the war they had with Haiti. So when Haiti got its independent, they was able to get Haiti back by saying, all right, you won, but guess what? You still got to pay us. You still got to owe us some money. And so, yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, that comes with a lot of cost of being an independent nation, paying back the people who has controlled your country and controlled your resources. That's the part about it. So let's go in to find out who is Jean-Pierre Boyer and all the other leaders during that time period. Let's go. Let's look up who Jean. Now let's look at who is Jean-Pierre Boyer. I hope you guys can see the screen. All right, so this is Jean-Pierre Boyer right here. That's him. So who was he? So he was one of the leaders of the Haitian Revolution and the president from 1818 to 1843. He reunited the north and south of the country in the Republic of Haiti in 1820, and also annexed the newly independent Spanish Haiti, Santo Domingo, which brought all of his Hispaniola under one Haitian government by 1822. Boyer managed to rule for the longest period of time of any of the revolutionary leaders of his generation. Now, let's go into a little bit about his background. He was born in Port-au-Prince and was the biracial son of a French tailor and an African-American mother, a former slave from Congo. He was sent to France by his father to become educated. Under the French Revolution, he fought as a battalion commander and fought against Toussaint Louverture in the early years of the Haitian Revolution. He later allied himself with André Rigaud, also of mulatto ancestry, in the latter's abortive insurrection against Toussaint to try to keep control of the southern region of Saint-Domingue. Now it says, after going into exile in France, Boyer and Alexandre Piante returned in 1802 with the French troops led by General Charles Leclerc. After it became clear the French were going to try to reimpose slavery and restriction on the free Jean de Couleur, which means the free people of color. Boyer joined the Patriots under Piante and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who led the colony to independence. After Piante rose to power in the Republic of Haiti in the South, he chose Boyer as his successor. He was reportedly under the influence of his and his predecessor lover, Marie Madeleine Lages, who acted as his political advisor. All right, so it says when Saint Domingo became independent in 1821, Boyer was quick to occupy and gain control, uniting the entire island under his rule by February 9th, 1822. All right, so Boyer ruled the island of Hispaniola until 1843, when he lost the support of the ruling elite and was ousted. All right, so now let's look at what he did. So Boyer and his assistant Joseph Balthazar Enoch, if I'm saying his name, I don't know how to say that name, and Jostanas Granville were deeply involved with the massive migration of Black Americans to Haiti in 1824. Right? It said, yet this event did not happen in a vacuum. Neither did the migrants respond reflectively to the promises the Haitian government offered. The migration is often called a failure because of 6,000 or more migrants, a couple or more thousand returned to the U.S. However, those who stayed often had a different assessment of the migration. The term failure then should be applied to the prospect the Haitian government had with the migrants and the idea many white philanthropists in the U.S. had of relocate the entire Black population out of the country. None of these objectives were met, yet for the descendant of the migrants now living in the peninsula of Samana and those who also assimilated into the local culture, the migration gave them the opportunity to find new life on the island and often to interact in a wider Black diaspora through commerce and industry. Their knowledge of the English language gave them an edge in Haiti. So check this out. Again, and then goes on to say the American Colonization Society knows the recruitment effort concerned that free Black could never assimilate to the United States. Its members founded their society in 1816 to repatriate American Blacks to Africa, regardless of where they had been born. It was an uneasy collaboration between abolitionists and slaveholders who approached the issue from differing viewpoints. The ACS planned colonization in what became Liberia for former slaves. In 1817, Laurie D. Dewey toured the East Coast to recruit immigrants, starting in New York. The organization hoped to resettle 100,000 free people of color within 10 years. And it goes on to say, Dewey meetings with people in New York convinced him to abandon the idea of colonizing Liberia. Most American Blacks did not want to leave what they considered was fully their native country. Dewey met with Haitian citizens in New York, most of whom were refugees, ethnic French, and free people of color who had fled the revolution. They recommended Haiti as the ideal Black homeland due to its moderate weather conditions and independent Black government. After Dewey wrote to Boyer to determine if he was still interested in receiving American immigrants, Boyer proposed that Haiti would seek Black exclusively from the United States. All right, so, and that's just the part I'm going to read now, going further down right here. It says, beginning in September 1824, nearly 6,000 Americans, mostly free people of color, migrated to Haiti within a year, with ships departing from New York, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. Due to the poverty of the island and the inability of Boyer's administration to help support the new immigrants in the transition, most returned to the United States with a short period of time. All right. So it says payment of indemnity to France. Check this out. Boyer was anxious to eliminate the threats from France and open negotiation. An agreement was reached on July 11 of 1825 when Boyer signed an indemnity treaty. It stated that France would recognize Haiti as an independent country in return for 150 million francs paid within 5 years. While this sum was later reduced to 90 million francs in 1838, it was a crushing economic blow to Haiti. Boyer had to negotiate a loan from France of 30 million francs to pay the first part of the indemnity. Most of the large rural Haitian population, meanwhile, was retreated in an agricultural subsistence pattern. He tried to enforce the semi-feudal farmerage system in order to increase agricultural productivity on the island, but the people resisted being tied to other people's land. With the Royal Act, Boyer resurrected a land distribution program. He broke up some of the large plantation and distribute land to the small farmers to try to produce enough products for export to generate revenue. The government tied the rural population to their small holdings and established production quotas. All right. So again, as you can see, even to this day, they're still owing money to France. Again, it comes with a cost. So that's the story about Jean-Pierre Boyer. Okay. That's his story. That's his history. So under his leadership, he was the one that was, calling the shots and things of that nature. So, yeah. All right. All right, then. So let's go ahead and let's go back to the book real fast. If you guys want to check this book out, you can check it out at your library. If not, you can go on Amazon and you can find the PDF for this book. Okay. So look, check this here. Going further down, it says the Taino Arawak name Haiti or Hati, meaning mountainous, anticipated a new epoch without slavery or Europeans. David Guggis suggests that the choice of an Amerindian name by leaders was a way to create a culturally neutral, neither European nor African reference for the diverse population confronting a future together. The country was divided between rival factions of blacks and mulattoes, speakers of French and African languages or Creole, and adherents of Catholicism and voodoo. Yes, they do practice a lot of voodoo out there in Haiti. And these differences in cultures, religion, language, and color had to be bridged by more than a mere name change. For some, the animosity that was rooted in the slave past when Creole mulatto masters enslaved Black Africans continue to despise the unity shown by some Black and mulatto leaders during the Revolution. During the last stages of the war, when the French forces turned the conflict into one of racial extermination, unity prevailed. This unity of purpose was short-lived, and the project of creating a nation out of a thinly allied mulatto and Black leadership posed an intermediate challenge to Dessalines' skills as a leader. So, although they won the revolution, many of them didn't have the skills of being able to run a country. They didn't have that type of skills. They didn't have that type of training or education. They didn't know how to run a government. They didn't know that it was going to come with a lot of challenges, and come with a lot of costs. They was not well prepared for that. Now, they were prepared to fight against the French, but they weren't really prepared to run the government. So they had to come up with plans and solutions and go to other nations and figure out where they can get help from, because they didn't have that type of skills. They didn't have that type of leadership. You got to remember, they came from descendants of those who were slaves. All right. We're talking about Dessalines, Boyer, and Alexandre. They all came from descendants of those who were slaves in that country. Their ancestors. So they didn't have that type of skill set of leadership, of run the government. And this was something new to them. So it was something that it was going to take a long period of time for them to acquire and be able to develop. All right, so it says, as Dessalines realized that he needed to do something to improve Haiti's agricultural output, he resorted to the first migration scheme of attracting blacks from the United States. These Americans would bolster Haiti's population, add a new laborers, secure skilled manpower, and supply additional military personnel against a possible foreign invasion. Dessalines, now this is all under Dessalines before Boyer came into position of power. Okay, Dessalines advertised in northern-based American newspaper and offered $40 to ship captains for every man transported to the island. Dessalines also offered to buy African slaves bound for Jamaica from British slavers. Although no evidence indicate that Dessalines successfully implemented his proposal, this project of importing population was revised by his successor. Support for a parallel plan had existed in the United States, but whether Dessalines knew of this previous plan is a mystery. In 1801, Thomas Jefferson contemplated exploring rebellious slaves to St. Dominique after Gabriel's conspiracy. Jefferson, whose idea of black inferiority was well known, at first believed that the island had held great promise for the United States, especially to southern slave states, as a place to exile insubordinated slaves. Eventually, however, Jefferson feared that a powerful black nation, Eventually, however, listen, Jefferson feared that a powerful black nation in the Caribbean would become a rival and perpetuate a race war in the United States. Resulting in the extermination of one or the other race. Dessalines' action in the deadly days of 1803, then again in the French massacre, confirmed Jefferson's fears. The United States must be protected from the contagion of the island and its race wars. This extended to trade with the island. So, in other words, what Thomas Jefferson was worried about, if we send too many black folks out there in Haiti, eventually Haiti is going to be so powerful to where they're going to build up an army and they're going to rebel against the Europeans that was in these position of powers in other nations. And Thomas Jefferson said we need to slow down on that. We need to not just send them off so fast because word that they going to come against us. So what Thomas Jefferson was afraid of, the rise of black people, especially the rise of black men coming as a force, as a powerful force to be reckoned with. That's what he was worried about. But you guys give me. Yeah, sorry about that, but that was Thomas Jefferson fear. He was worried that if too many black people go to Haiti and just live there, because what he was doing at first, he wanted to send all these black folks over there as a form of punishment, as an exile, because they were insubordinate slaves. But he was worried, well, dang, if we start sending all them slaves over there to Haiti, and by Haiti being a black nation, and they join forces with those Haitian people, they gonna rebel against us. So we gotta slow down. We gotta keep an eye on them. And that's what he was worried about. He was in fear for that. He wasn't really going for that. He said, nah, we're gonna slow it down. But anyways, if you guys want to look more into this, again, you can go to your library and check it out. Check out this book, or you can go on Amazon and you can download the ebook, or you can download or you can buy the book. And also you can go on Scrib. Scrib is an app where there are many PDFs, audio books, and documents to check out. So it's $9.99 a month, which rounds up to about $10 a month. So you can go on that website, just download the app on Google Play or your Apple iPhone. And you can just type this in: Caribbean Crossing, African Americans, and the Haitian Immigration Movement by Sarah Fanning. All right. So now let's go on to the Samana Americans. Who are the Samana Americans? All right, so here it is. The Samana Americans are a minority cultural subgroup of African American descendants that inhabited the Samana Province in the eastern region of Dominican Republic. All right, so here it is. Frederick Douglass addressing a crowd of Samana Americans in Samana on January 28th of 1871. Let's go further. Now let's look at the history. So most of the Samana Americans are descendant of African Americans who, beginning in 1824, immigrated to Hispaniola, then under Haitian administration. Benefiting from the Haitian immigration policy facilitated in part by the mulatto president Jean-Pierre Boyer and Jonathan Granville, traveled to the U.S. in June of 1824 in response to a letter that Laurent D. Dewey had sent to Boyer. While in the U.S., Granville met with other abolitionists like Richard Allen, Samuel Cornish, and Benjamin Lundy to organize a campaign for what was coined the Haitian Immigration. The result was successful, as more than 6,000 immigrants responded in less than a year. After that, however, the settlement met with multiple problems and many returned. However, many stayed. Among those who stayed, enclaves in Puerto Plata and Santo Domingo were clearly evident by the time of Frederick Douglass' visit in 1871. But the most distinct of the enclaves was the one in Samana, which has survived until today. They constitute a recognizable and sizable cultural enclave, and a few of its members are native Samana English speakers. Aware of its distinctive heritage, the community whose peculiar culture distinguished them from the rest of the Dominicans referred to itself as Samana Americans, and is referred to by fellow Dominicans as Los Americanos de Samana. Cultural distinctiveness. Crucially, they maintain many elements of 19th century African American culture, such as their variety of African American English cuisine, game, and community services association that have since disappeared in the United States. Cultural exchange with other groups in the area, like the Samana Haitian community and the Spanish Spanish-speaking majority, have been inedible. But for most of its history, the English-speaking enclave has kept to itself, favoring instead intermarriages and reciprocal relationship with other Black immigrants groups that are also Protestant and English speakers, like the so-called Cocolos. This is due to the relative isolation of the community, which until the 20th century was accessible only by boat due to lack of roads connecting them to the rest of the island. Most follow the African Methodist Episcopal and Wesleyan denomination that their ancestors brought with them to the island. All right, let's look up what the Cocolos were. So who are the Cocolos? So the Cocolo is a term used in Spanish-speaking Caribbean to refer to non-Hispanic African descent. The term originated in the Dominican Republic and is historically used to refer to the Anglophone Caribbean immigrants and their descendants, and more rarely towards those from the Francophone Caribbean, namely the Cocolos of Saint Pedro de Marquez, Puerto Plata, the Samana Peninsula, and other Afro descendants who live in coastal areas were culturally distinct from the Hispanized Dominicans. However, the term is also sometimes applied to Dominicans who are Hispanized but are of darker skin tones and live primarily in coastal regions of the country. All right. So it says traditionally both of these groups were culturally distinct for the Dominicans who primarily lived in the interior of the country and tend to have higher degrees of European ancestry. All right. So let's go down. History. Immigration of the Cocolos began with the rise and development of the sugar industry in the Dominican Republic. Although immigration are preferably placed in coastal communities with active ports like Sanchez, Samana, Monte Cristi, Puerto Plata, the main Dominican ports were in the North Band, so that a large majority of these immigrants came from the Bahamas, the Turks, especially in Puerto Plata, due to proximity. Many also came from St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, Antigua, Angola, St. Vincent, Montserrat, Tortola, St. Croix, St. Thomas, Martinique, and Guadeloupe. The first Turk and Caso Islanders immigrants began arriving in Puerto Plata after the Dominican War of Restoration. Long before the modern sugar industry was established, there were carpenters, blacksmiths, and school teachers who immigrated due to the economic crisis in the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. Many also came as stevedores, boats line Clyde Steamship Company, which dominated trade for many years. When the railroad of Puerto Plata Santiago was built in the late 19th century, many came from these islands to work on the railroad, as well as others from St. Thomas, which was then a Danish colony. They also settled in large numbers in Puerto Plata. All right, so that's what the Cocolo is. The Cocolo is a term to refer to those who are non-Hispanic African descended people. All right, so it was sometimes used against those who were of Hispanic descent, but they were dark skin color. So, dark skin meaning that they were Afro-Latinos type. So they will also use that term for them. But it was mostly for those who were non-Hispanic African descendant folks. Now, was it used as a racial term? Yes, it could have been a racial terminology. I mean, of course. Now, what you guys, let's get into the little background history real fast. So there is a holiday that the Dominican Republicans celebrate. They celebrate their independence against Haiti. And it's somewhere around February. Only reason why they do that because, Dominican was under Haitian rule. So when they got their independence from Haiti, right, they have this celebration. So there is some conflicts, or there's a lot of conflicts between the Haitian and Dominican Republicans as of today. Okay, but they both share the same island. They come from the same island. It's just like you walk across the street and there's somebody's house over there. That's the same way. They share the same island. Just like you beefing with somebody that's on the same block as you, that's the same way with them. They in the same lane, mass, but it just one happened to be across the river from the other. Anyways, to this day, there's still some type of conflict between the Dominican and Haitian group. And so many Dominicans, they don't see themselves or identify themselves as African descent. Many of them don't. They identify more with their Latino side or, their Spanish side, especially the light-skinned Dominicans, because, a lot of them, they are mulatto mixed. So they identify with the Spanish part of them more than they do with the black part. Now, there are those who have that knowledge of self, if you will, and they understand their history. Somebody like Amera La Negra. So if y'all don't know who Amera La Negra is, a matter of fact, let me post up a picture of this sister right here. And I'm going to play a video where she talks about all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video by one of my favorites, Amera La Negra. Amera La Negra is an artist, an up-and-coming artist that's from Miami, Florida, but she was on a show called Love Hip Hop in Miami. And, in Miami, there is a strong diversity of Dominicans and Cubans and also Haitian people. As a matter of fact, there's an area in Miami called Little Haiti. So it's a strong Haitian population. If you guys know that rapper, Kodak Black is of Haitian background. So a lot of people don't know that he's Haitian. All right. His mother was from Haiti. His parents from Haiti. But he grew up in, I forgot what part of Florida he's from, but it starts with the people. I can't get it off the top of my head. But anyways, he grew up in a Haitian community, right? But he grew up in the hood, but around a bunch of Haitian people. Anyways, in Miami, it's a lot of Haitians out there, and it's a lot of Dominican out there. And with Amera, she had some issues growing up between, being on the black side and being on the Dominican side, you know what I'm saying? Because by her being a dark-skinned complexion, many Dominicans kind of look down on her like, yeah, you ain't one of us, so whatever. Right. And then the black people, they're like, oh, you Spanish, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it was like very tough for her because she grew up in the inner city herself. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that type of dichotomy taking place to this day. And also Trina. Now, Trina, father's side of the family, the rapper Trina, her father's side of the family is Dominican, and her mother's side of the family is Bahamian. So, if y'all know her little gay cousin, Bobby Light, the one that was starting a whole bunch of mess with folks on the show, Bobby Light, he's Dominican. All right, so yeah, but he's light skinned as hell, but he's Dominican though. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and play this video with Amera La Negra. And she's explaining why it's important to know about, Afro-Latino, being African descendant and of the Latin background. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go ahead and play this video for you guys.
Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? This is your girl Amara La Negra, and we are celebrating Black History Month. What does it mean to be an Afro-Latina? It means to, I always say this, it means flavor, it means sound, it means rhythm, it means Melanin, it means a lot of things. It means beauty, it means power. I am a proud Afro-Latina. I come from African descent, meaning my race is black, as you can obviously tell. But I am Latina, I am Dominican, I'm proud of being it. And I know that a lot of people that are confused and really don't understand it, but with time, I am doing my best to inform all of you guys about the Afro-Latino community. It's super important to me to embrace my Afro-Latino culture. I want everybody around the world to know us, to know about our music, to know about our food, to know about our culture. I think it's important for the rest of the world to also be informed of different other cultures. And like I said, the fact that I feel as if it's 2018 and a lot of people still don't even know that there's black people that speak Spanish, that there's every Latin country has Afro-Latinos, that have people that look like myself. It's so important to educate people. So it really means a lot to me. So then that's what I'm doing. What are some of the misconceptions of being Latino? Oh, I know this one and I say it all the time. One of the misconceptions is that a lot of people believe that Latin women and males only look like Shakira, J-Lo, Sofia Vergara, Salma Hayek. No. All over, Ecuador, Chile, Honduras, Cuba, República Dominicana. There's so many different countries where there's Afro-Latinos, where there's black people just like myself. So that's a misconception. We don't all look like J-Lo. Some of us look like me. Celia Cruz, oh my God, I don't even know what to start. She means so much to me. She's my idol. Growing up, there wasn't, a lot of, or if that, any Afro-Latino, women or anybody on TV that I can admire and be like, oh my God, one day I can be like her. Till I got to know Celia Cruz. She was beautiful, she was humble, she was talented. She was just an amazing human being. And she was the one person that gave me hope to feel that one day when I was older, I was going to be able to be like her. So I pray that I can leave my print in this world the same way that she did. I admire her so much. She's such an important figure, not just in the Afro-Latino community, but in the Latin community in general, worldwide. She's just such an important person to Latino history. So I definitely love Celia Cruz.
All right, so yeah, that's the video. As you can see now, you see how she spoke against the stereotype about Afro-Latinos, right? So people think that a lot of Latinos are supposed to just look like Shakira and Jennifer Lopez and the singer Enrique and Mark Anthony type. And she was like, no, we come in different shades. We not just, they're not just people that look like Jennifer Lopez or Rosie Perez. Rosie Perez and Jennifer Lopez, they both Puerto Rican, but either way, what I'm saying, people get the misconception. So when they see somebody that's black, like Amira Negra, they won't believe that, oh, she's Latino. What? Ain't no black Latinos out there. At first, I didn't think there was any black Latinos out there. I'm like, nah, that couldn't be. Until I started looking up the history, then I started to educate myself more and realizing that, oh, wow, this is interesting. And then what's also crazy is I didn't even know that Haitian people were considered to be Latino. I didn't know that. Haitian people are considered as Latino. So that was just very surprising to me. It was like, oh, that's a culture shock right there to realize that. But yeah, they, a lot of them deal with identity crisis. They really do. They don't really embrace their history, especially the African part, because just like many of us here in America, we were made to feel that being African descent is a bad thing. So we try to identify with being Indian, being some other race, like that, especially if we're biracial. Let's just say somebody might say, oh, my daddy is such and such. My daddy is Indian. My daddy is European. My dad is from India or something like that. We'll try to embrace other people's culture. You know what I'm saying? Instead of embracing our own, because that comes from the concept of self-hate. So just like we have it here, they have it there in the Dominican and in the Haitian community. Well, more so in the Dominican community, there's a lot of self-hate. You know what I'm saying? As far as being Black is concerned. So there are those who identify, who connect with their African roots. There are those who just rather connect with the Spanish part of them. All right. I have a book that I want you all to check out that deals with Dominican Americans, that goes into more about the Samana Americans. And I had it highlighted here, so I was like, I was reading. But you know what? Let me read something to y'all real quick. All right, so right here, it says Dominican Blackness and Frederick Douglass. Opposition in the United States and the serious challenge posed by nationalist insurrection against President Diaz in the Dominican Republic put an end to the political measure that made Dominican land almost a territory. To echo the title of a book that studies the attempt made as a nation following the failure of the scheme, American statesmen showed during the next 2 decades little interest in things Dominican. Showing little interest in things Dominican. For that time, the country seemed to disappear from American political discourse. Samuel Hazard, who had traveled to San Domingo with the Commission of Inquiry in 1871, wrote only 2 years later about the oblivion into which the Dominican Republic had fallen into the public opinion sectors of the United States. Perhaps the most salient feature of the rapport between the two countries at the time was the U.S. government's choice of Black Americans to serve as a diplomatic representative in the Dominican Republic. President Rutherford B. Hayes, who succeeded President Grant in the White House, appointed a Black man named H.H.C. Ashwood American Counsel in the Dominican Republic, a position that he occupied through the first years of President Grover Cleveland's first term in office in 1885 to 1889. The choice arguably entitled a recognition of the Dominicans as a people of color who would become a Black diplomatic official, thus marking a change from the former racial characterization of Dominicans by American observer. And then check this out. It says the administration of President Benjamin Harrison brought to Dominican Republic the renowned Frederick Douglass, the most notable Black American living at the time. Dominican ruler General Ulysses Haro had for some years urged the U.S. government to establish a diplomatic mission in the country, particularly since one already existed in Haiti, where Douglass served as the American minister in Port-au-Prince. Haro's request was finally granted when the famous Black human rights activist and author arrived on February 23, 1890 as the first American charge d'affaires in Santo Domingo. President Haro, who stands out in Dominican history for his shrewd aristocratic grip on Dominican society for 15 years, was a Black man. He often appalled negrophobic whites who could not concede to a Black person the ability or the right to rule a country, irrespective of the merits of any criticism of his political conduct as a despotic president. They often stressed his Blackness in a sense that seemed to racialize his action. One such commentator, Sumner Wells, a chief of the Latin American division of the Department of State, who in the 1920s went to the Dominican Republic as envoy extraordinary and minister, I'm not even going to say all that. Anyway, subscribe to Hero, the weakness of the savage, his domination by his sexual passion, which were never satiated, and his lust for blood. What the hell? Wells affirmed that Hero was ever mindful of the completely Negro aspect of his face, which he attempted to mitigate so far as nature made it possible by restoring to the most elaborated uniforms to the most immaculated clothes. The texture of Wells' remarks would seem to construe Blackness as a condition for which one needed a compensate. When Douglass met the Black Dominican chief of state, however, he did not think that his physical features required palliation. Nor did Douglas find it necessary to adduce genetic basis to explain the president's psychopathology. He noted, on the contrary, the president's superior intellect. Besides his native language, he speaks French and English, the latter remarkably well. He is a man of energy and intelligence, and his history proves him to be well versed in statesmanship. This is Frederick Douglass. It said, consistent with Douglas' background as a fighter against racial oppression, he assessed the physical and mental attributes of hero in terms that differed radically from the racially depreciatory portrayal of negrophobic white observers such as Wells. All right, so it's no surprise. It's no surprise because somebody that's a dark-skinned complexion was depicted as evil, bad, no good, instead of the characteristic. It was based on dark-skinned complexion. But yeah, that's how those Europeans are. But anyways, let me show you guys the source that I was reading from. This book right here is called Dominican Americans, which is written by Silvio Torres Salant Ramona Hernandez. Okay. All right. And then also, I have an article that you guys can check out as well. It's called the Samana Americans. Although we have been here so long, we have preserved our feelings as American. We try to keep our people together here as Americans. Reverend Jacob James. All right. So this article comes from Penn Museum, right? It's called the Samana Americans Research Notes. Some Forgotten Philadelphians by John M. Weeks and Virginia Ramez Zabala. Okay. As you can see, they all the same island, but it just split up. That's all it is, just a split. Okay. And as you can see, a part of Port-au-Prince is over in Dominican area. So part of Port-au-Prince, the capital, is in Haiti, and then the other part of it is in Dominican Republic, as you can see right here. So, yeah. So you guys can check this out if you want to. There's a video I want to show. There's a video that I really want to show, and I think that this is very important. I want to show a video with Amerila Negra encountering some issue with young Hollywood, who is Dominican, but he's mulatto, biracial. His mother is the light skinned, the Europeanized version of Latino, and his father is Black Latino or something like that. So I just want to show something. This is what made me kind of pissed off. This is what made me just not. This is one reason why I don't really watch these reality shows. All right, hold on. I'm gonna put it up. It's a little clip where they did the whole check yourself thing. So I'm gonna show you guys. Let's see.
Writing's not that easy.
Okay. Now let me show you guys this whole check yourself thing. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and play this video real quick.
You're watching Love and Hip Hop Miami,
Check yourself.
Season 1.
You'll be watching us
Watch the show.
for the very first time.
You be getting our natural.
And honest reactions.
We're watching it with you. The scene you're about to see is me vibing in the studio when Amada comes in with her extra attitude and her extra large afro.
When I went to go meet Hollywood, I really didn't think or know that he was also a stylist. Not.
Let's say we were actually to take some and do a record, right? And I'm like, yo, I need you to look a certain way.
What would a certain way look like? Like what? It was weird as hell. The only thing he was concerned about the moment I walked through was the way that I look and my throat.
You know, the afro thing's cool. Maybe we could do, you know what I'm saying, like a video here and there, a certain look, but you know, maybe try something different looks.
So wait, I don't get it. What does that
It's a seasonal
elaborate?
thing. Maybe sometimes you might want to, you know what I'm saying, twist it up. Maybe do some braids, some cornrows, flat iron it a little bit, put it to the side, little bob, you know what I'm saying?
So I can't be elegant if I have a fro.
Yeah, I guess so. Ah, man, they're gonna attack me for that.
Mira, Hollywood es un estúpido. Being an Afro-Latina, I think I embrace it as much as possible.
Afro-Latina, elaborate. Are you African? Or is that just because you have an afro?
You see that brainwashed mentality that I'm talking about? Hello? You're only a couple of shades lighter than me, like by this much.
At the end of the day, in the music industry, they're looking for cookie cutter poster child.
So where are the women that look like myself? You must do good music, huh?
I think Amada was getting upset with me because she wasn't getting what she used to. I'm pretty sure a lot of dudes be drooling, being all thirsty and all just, you know what I'm saying, open to, hey, you know what I'm saying, trying to catch a vibe. But I'm good.
I didn't mean to offend you and try to come off with you that
There
way.
you go. You're,
So
yeah,
if you were offended,
you're going good. I offended you.
I was doing good, but I gotta keep it 100. You're psychotic. But the whole fact that you're trying to make it an issue and like keep conversating instead of just be like, yo, scratch that, let's work, let's talk about something. It's crazy.
If you guys ever find yourself a rinky-dinky ass producer like Young Hollywood telling you that you need to change the way that you look in order to be successful, don't listen to them.
The next scene you're about to see is Atlanta Shay.
Holding it down, man. We about to represent for Dade County.
Okay. So, anyways, as you can see, Young Hollywood was being very stupid, and he said some real stupid shit. He didn't know no better. Yeah, he was very racist towards her, but that's okay because I'm glad they schooled him. Hold on, I got another one I want to show. Okay, let me show this. I want to show another one. Let me show another one because, yeah, I got to show where they school him. And I'm glad they schooling him about Afro-Latinos.
Amada, what
What was going through your head when he started talking to you about your appearance and about your hair?
I was upset this much, but not really, because unfortunately all my life I've had to deal with people that have had that mentality.
Right.
There's certain people that will never understand. I was upset because he just kept like digging into it with the Nutella Queen. It's annoying the fact that I feel as if I always have to defend myself, defend my race, defend my looks, defend my fro, whether it's my Afro puff. My hair doesn't define me. My hair is just part of me. Look at me now. I'm still Mara La Negra. The hair that grows out of my hair is an Afro. Period. So if I want to wear it a certain type of way, that shouldn't affect who I am as a person or my music.
I obviously didn't articulate myself. When I say Afro, I didn't mean like when she said, "Oh, my hair grows as an Afro." It actually grows curly. Like it's not an Afro. Is that the name of that of hair that grows like Afro? It's curly hair, right? Isn't it just curly hair?
Well,
I'm not trying to.
The more he talks,
let me ask
the
you.
more he digs himself.
I just don't understand how a hair, you know,
himself.
it is what it is. I said it the wrong way, and I apologize for that. It wasn't my intention.
It wasn't
And I
a
got caught up in
genuine
the
apology,
emotion.
because even now,
But I can't
after
finish
the
explaining.
show
I let
has
her
been
speak and I will
over
speak. So
and
it's like-
done, and you still didn't sit down to where Afro Latinos are.
I know.
Like, and not only that, but you have a website selling Afro Papi, Afro Mommy t-shirts. On top of that, you mocked me.
I'm trying to rep the
You
cause. I ain't never heard of Afro Latinos. Okay, well, we are Afro Latinos then now. Let's do the Afro Latino move.
You're still sitting here.
I'm not the only one that's
curly
going
hair.
everywhere like,
It's not
what
an
is this? Ain't nobody
afro.
heard of that before. Because everybody's going crazy off like of skin complex colorism. Like that's to me. I don't
Colorism
see
is
no
retarded?
difference between anybody.
What
I
are you
don't.
saying
My
now?
dad's black, my mom's white. That's to me. So you're super Spanish. You only speak Spanish. You don't hang out in the black community like that. You don't be in like.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like you know the difference between race, nationality, and ethnicity. And you being Hispanic and you saying your dad is black and I'm speaking to you and you saying that your mom is white. The thing is, black
Color.
people.
They're both Spanish, but they're black and white.
Well, I'm the same way. My parents are both black and they're born in Cuba, but they're of African descent. Latino means that we're of African descent. Black African people weren't just dropped off in America. They were dropped off.
But if you want to go deeper than that, that goes really deep. That goes really
Honestly,
deep.
you don't know. Our ancestors are from Africa.
Of course, but everybody's from Africa if you want to go there. We didn't even know what. Like, what are you talking about?
Listen, why
The
you
whole
getting
human
so
race derives from Africa if you want to go there.
You guys see
What are you talking about? That don't make no sense. I'm done talking about that.
We're going to switch gears because we're not going to get anywhere with this. Okay, guys.
What's
You see that? You see, here it is, a light-skinned Dominican Republican brother telling a dark-skinned sister who happens to be Dominican Republic that he doesn't know what an Afro-Latino is and making fun of her and tell her she has to switch it up. Because, see, he's so used to the types that look like Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. That's what he wanted. He felt that she was too dark to represent the Latino community. You see that? So you see a case of racism amongst those in the Dominican community. I just had to show that. And obviously Juju, who was also Afro-Latino herself, her parents from Cuba, right? But she speaks Spanish. Okay. Juju kind of looked like Gabriel Union. But anyways, she tried to school him, and of course he wasn't trying to hear that. He was very ignorant of that. He wasn't trying to hear it. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't trying to be very cohesive to what she was trying to say. So he was trying to ignore her the whole entire time. But the argument is, the whole point is, right? And this is why we have to be very careful, especially with groups like the ADOS and the FBA movement. They'll say something to try to create a further dichotomy amongst the black community. And not realize that the ADOS was not just only here in America. You had the ADOS that immigrate to other places, like the Caribbeans, like the Latin countries, such as Dominican Republic and Haiti, Puerto Rico. You know, you had those that went to Trinidad. You had those that went to Jamaica. You even gonna find those that's in Mexico. They are a descendant of those African slaves that ran away from America. So, you know, knowledge is universal. Knowledge is important. It's the key. So I'm not gonna go on any further, but I hope you all that was watching enjoyed this video and understand the point that I was making. I hope you guys go ahead, share the content, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell wherever I come on. So thank you all for watching. And I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to all the Muslims out there who celebrate Ramadan. So May the 12th will be the last day of Ramadan. But Ramadan Mubarak to you guys. I hope you guys enjoy your Ramadan. And for those of you that got vaccinated, continue to stay safe. For those of you that didn't get vaccinated, still be safe during this pandemic. We all dealing with some serious crisis right now. There's a serious issue where I'm at about the gas. So there's not much gas at the gas station. So they're dealing with the whole cyber attack or whatever. So the pipeline went from Jersey all the way down to Texas. You know what I'm saying? So, but we have been hit the hardest where I'm at because I'm in Georgia. So, yeah, we're dealing with a lot of issue with gas right now, and the prices are going up. So, yeah, other than that, you guys, please make sure you have a good one. Be safe, and I'll reconnect with you all later. So, peace and power elevation be to all you. This your girl, Tiffany, and I'm out. All right.